Alright guys, so we're going to get into another episode of what ants are real and what is not. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so like I said in the little intro, we are going to be doing another episode of what ants are real and what is not. Before we get into that, gotta get into the usual shenanigans. This video is sponsored by UPTO. We're using my code EGNE3. You can get anywhere from 5 to 65% off all in-game purchases. Everybody's trying to save a little bit of money, and if you're an Android user, this is a great way to be able to do so. Absolutely costs you nothing besides what you are already going to pay, and you get money back from paying for the things that you want to buy in the game. Saves you money. It's a great way to be able to save money when buying some of the paid ants and such. On top of that, in the description down below will be a link to my Discord and various things, as well as a full video how to obtain this discount. So we'd love to be able to see it there. That way you can have a great community to be able to join in and ask questions, get answers that you want, as well as the family aspect that we have around it. On top of that, it would really help me out because right now there's 65% of you that watch my videos that are not subscribed. It really does not cost you a thing. Please just hit that subscribe, hit that like, leave a comment. You have no idea how much it helps content creators like me to be able to continue producing and making content for you. All right, so let's get right into it. Alright, so the first one that we are going to talk about is everybody's favorite little ant, the Wise Berserker. Now, this is actually a real ant, and let me tell you a little bit about it. Now, it does not go by the name of Wise Berserker. It actually doesn't have a street name, but it is named the Mysterium camali ant. And it's actually a very rare species that is really difficult to find, and you can't usually find it for sale. The most common name that they have is actually the Dracula Ant, is what they are called, and we'll get into why they're called the Dracula Ant. But they're also very different in the way that they act in their hive and in their colony. So typically there are several queens to any one colony with around 200 to 300 workers and several queens. Most of the food is small centipedes. And what is actually really amazing about them is that they have one of the fastest and strongest mandible bites that there is in the world, with speeds up to 200 miles per hour that they are able to close their jaw. What allows them to do this is that they're actually very unique, because most ants will have 3 different parts in their actual mandibles, which would be a spring, a latch, and a lever arm to be able to basically work after each other to be able to close their jaws. With Dracula ants, they're all in one, so it's all basically a spring release. So they usually walk around with their mouths open, and the second they want to close, they close at rates of 200 miles per hour, which is absolutely fascinating. So how do they get the name Dracula Ant? That's where it actually gets kind of amazing. So the food that they catch, they actually bring back to their larvae. And the reason why they have the name of Dracula Ant is the workers and the ants themselves, instead of actually eating what they catch, they will actually puncture their own larvae and drink the fluid that is in their own larvae eggs, which is why they got the name Dracula. What is more interesting is that them actually doing this act does not actually harm the larvae whatsoever, and the larvae will be able to grow and be able to be a whole new ant, a Dracula ant. Alright, so now we'll get on to the next one. The next ant on our list is the Crimson Pearl. Now this one was an interesting one, which I found very little information on. The one thing that was able to be found is that it is not actually an ant whatsoever, but it is actually a spider. which they're known for having their front legs above their head like antennas, essentially to be able to mimic ants, which is very interesting in why they would do so. In my research, I wasn't really able to find this particular species, even though it gives the species name. But all it is that particular scientific name is just the type of jumping spider. There was nothing that I could find that was exactly like it. I did find some lookalikes, which you'll see on the screen now. That could possibly be it, which is an ant that's based out of Asia and Central Asia. But as far as being able to find this exact species of ant, I was not able to do so. All right, and we move on to the next one. The next one is Lathy Sniffer. If I could find it. There it is. So this is actually an ant that we were able to find in our research. And it doesn't have a street name, but the scientific name, Tetra Panara, Riffon, Gara, whatever. I suck at saying scientific names. Mostly found around Asia and Africa. They typically hunt small insects and have been known to give a sting that it can cause allergic reactions in human beings. What is interesting about these ants is they're actually known to be one of the ants that have the best eyesight, and they're also known to be very aggressive and territorial in their behavior and around their nests. The pain from their sting can last several hours, and they're known to sting multiple times if threatened. It is also an ant that has a polygamous colony structure, meaning that you can have multiple queens coexisting within the single colony. Colony is usually up to about 500 ants, and like I said before, they are extremely territorial and defensive. They're often described as a upgraded fire ant that we have here in the United States. They are also known to be one of the fastest ant types that there are, even though they're only about 10 millimeters long. Some, the queens being about 12 to 16 millimeters long. And we will move on to the next one. So next on our list is the brown rogue. Actually, I didn't even take into account its number of legs when I first was researching this one, but actually come to find out that it is an ant mimicking spider once again. Now, this spider is also called the red weaver ant mimicking jumping spider, and it mimics an Asian weaver ant in its behavior and such. It's found in India, Sri Lanka, China, and Southeast Asia. Now, what's interesting about the male and female differences in this ant is the male is actually the one that will have the long mandibles that you'll see, whereas the females do not. They more easily mimic the weaver ants that they are trying to mimic. Now, what is interesting about these particular ant mimicking spiders is they actually don't mimic to be able to try to get closer to their prey. They actually do it for a form of protection. Because the weaver ants that they mimic, they taste bad and have a very painful bite, they try to mimic them for protection, where they actually eat a lot different things, different types of insect, and but they do not touch their ants. So it's kind of a cohesion in existence between the weaver ant and the brown rogue, but the mimicking spider that this is. All right, and so we will move on to the next one, which is the dark Hercules. This again, I thought was actually going to be a spider or an ant, but it is actually a spider as well. Now, for this particular spider, not much is actually out there that really tells about this particular insect. So in the research that I found, I really wasn't able to find too much. But the one interesting thing I was able to find was a research about its front mandibles and the size that they have with them. So they actually use them to basically more in mating than they do in anything else, where they will actually fight a male that they feel threatened by for the chosen female that they are trying to breed with. So, which is very interesting. And so essentially, the bigger it is, the more likely they're going to win, which is a joke within itself. As far as what type of spider it is basically called what it is in the game, which is Myracromnachigisti. I suck with these scientific names. But again, there's very little information that could actually be found on this. Alright, and we move on to the next one. Everybody loves this little guy, the Banshee Panda. So this is actually not an ant at all, but actually a wasp. It is mostly found in Chile, and it's actually a wingless wasp. Now, there's actually quite a few things that are interesting about this particular bee. So it's named the panda ant obviously because of its coloring, but the females are actually wingless, yet the males have wings. They're measured up to 8 millimeters. This species is actually an endangered species because even though the female lays up to 2,000 eggs a year, the species is still considered endangered because most of its larvae does not survive. Now, this ant was actually very fascinating to be able to research because there's quite a few things that you wouldn't think that something so cute looking could actually do. For one, this is a parasitic wasp. So what it does is that the female actually injects the eggs into other larvae to be able to then hatch, and their larvae is able to eat the larvae of an existing other insect. It's not picky about what insect it does to. They just will always be parasitic in that nature, and their larvae will eat whatever eggs they happen to be injected into. Now, typically they pick on other bees, other underground bees and such, that they can enter the nest, infiltrate the nest, and because they have such a powerful sting, they're able to do so very easily and infect entire nests of other wasp bees and other insects. It is also interesting to note that when they mate, the male, which has wings, will actually pick the female up and they will do their business in midair, after which the female will go and find another nest to be able to lay her eggs. Now, it's also interesting to note that the female is the only one that has a stinger. The male does not have a stinger, and it is the one that is winged. It's also interesting to note that a lot of times the male and the females are actually thought to be different species entirely, because the male is nocturnal and the female is goes by the day. So, and their appearances look very, very different. The female sting is also known to be a cow killer. They are known after multiple stings to literally be able to kill a cow. So this little fuzzy thing is nothing you want to actually mess with because it can be deadly to humans and animals alike. Which is very interesting, especially just with all their traits that they have. Especially with males being able to be nocturnal and the females are work during the day. You can kind of understand why they are endangered because, they don't really have a lot of time to reproduce if that is the case. I mean, you basically got sun up and sunrise, or sunrise and sunset for them to be able to do so. Alright guys, that is all I got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed this and are looking forward to more of this kind of content. We will be getting back into some informational videos and such with the next week. Just starting Barons, so I'll be able to give more information about that and best strategies and such. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Ignace out.